So for my presentation, I chose to do option A, which was attending and observing two socio-historical events or cultural celebrations. In this case, I attended Nikkei Matsuri and a Cinco de Mayo festival. And I really wanted to show how cultural celebrations shape community and resilience. So a little bit of a brief introduction before we get into it. My main purpose of this project was to explore how cultural celebrations function as living representations of history, identity, and community resilience. My objective was to gain a deeper understanding of how marginalized communities maintain cultural identity in the face of challenges and how these events can serve as platforms for cultural pride and education. An overview of this presentation, I want to show how these two cultural events, one Japanese and one Hispanic-based one, help their communities celebrate their identity, share history, and stay connected to their roots. So a little bit of background on Nikkei Matsuri. Nikkei Matsuri is a cultural festival that's held every spring in San Jose's Japantown. And when I was doing my research on this event, I found it really interesting that there's only 3 remaining Japantowns in the entire country, and one of them is in San Jose. So I feel like it was a very cool event to get to experience. A little brief thing right here. Nikkei refers to people of Japanese ancestry living outside of Japan. So that was kind of cool how they integrated that into the name. So it was first held in 1978, and the festival was created to celebrate Japanese American culture and preserve community identity following the decades of discrimination, including the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. A little bit of background on the Cinco de Mayo festival. The Cinco de Mayo festival was held at the Plaza de Cesar Chavez in downtown San Jose. Cinco de Mayo commemorates Mexico's 1862 victory over the French forces at the Battle of Puebla. While the holiday has more limited recognition in Mexico, in the United States it has grown into a powerful symbol and kind of a way to show pride of a Mexican-American identity, resistance, and cultural pride, like I mentioned. This festival provided a platform for celebrating Latino heritage, educating the community, and creating a space for cultural expression in a society where Mexican Americans often face marginalization. So, a few of my event observations from Nikkei Matsuri. There were a lot of performances and demonstrations, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. So, there was a karate demonstration by a group of black belts. It was really, really cool. I highly recommend if you can attend one of those events that they put on. I would 100% recommend going. To me, it showed discipline, it showed tradition, and it showed pride for their culture. And it was really cool to see all the different unique people that were participating in that event. Besides the performances and demonstrations, they also had so many cultural booths. Some of these were bonsai tree booths and traditional dishware, which I included a picture of. Some vendors also sold traditional kimonos, and a lot of them were willing to share background on their significance and other cultural things that they had presented, like jewelry and stuff. They also had food and crafts area, so some of the food booths offered poke, soto, and doggy, which was kind of like a donut, and then chashu pork and more. There was lots of handmade crafts and homemade things, including origami paper and Japanese-inspired art and jewelry. Event observations at the Cinco de Mayo festival. There were performances and demonstrations, so there were mariachi bands and colorful folklorico dancers, and they performed at the central stage. They were all part of this group, Los Mestizos. Community involvement. I could tell at this event that a lot of it was community-based, which was very evident. It was so nice to see the community come together and celebrate this one thing and show pride. So booths were run by Latinx-led organizations, and they offered information and education. A lot of vendors sold churros, tacos, and handmade jewelry and clothing as well. And themes observed included resistance, pride, and celebration. A lot of these performances were rooted in cultural storytelling and history, and once again, my central word, pride. So common themes between both events and where they kind of cross over is cultural resilience, intergenerational participation, visibility in public spaces, and community solidarity. So, as for cultural resilience, both events were deeply rooted in preserving traditions and resisting cultural erasure. So, they kept their traditions alive. There were so many different events going on. At one end of the Nikkei Matsuri festival, you had the karate, and at the other end, you had um, younger generation performers dancing to the music. And that's gonna segue into our intergenerational participation. So both elders and youth actively participated in these celebrations. And it really showed to me how culture is passed down through these generations and how important it is to keep their culture alive. As for visibility in public spaces, both celebrations made ethnic identity visible and valued in historically significant community spaces. Both of these were held in the Japantown and the Plaza de Cesar Chavez, and I think that's really important because it just shows strength and pride for their community. And community solidarity. These festivals created joyful spaces of togetherness that uplifted the communities that are shaped by struggle and resilience. So they all came together and put on this wonderful event that was really amazing. So some of my key findings, I want to talk about the cultural celebrations as acts of resilience and identity. So I mentioned previously, but they transformed public spaces into sites of cultural visibility for historically marginalized groups. Both events use music, food, and tradition not just for celebration, but to push back against assimilation and assert ethnic identity. From sharing stories to different performances, both events showed culture being preserved and passed down. So they were their culture was an act of resilience through the stereotypes they endure. They are using this cultural pride as a form of resilience and making their identity, and as they should. I also want to highlight systemic inequities and cultural activism. Japanese Americans still face invisibility despite passing justices. Latinx communities continue navigating immigration and stereotyping issues. These issues are still prevalent today despite the efforts that we have made attempting to move forward. Both events included efforts like voter registration, educational booths, and promoted awareness empowerment. This picture over here is from the Nikkei Matsuri Festival. I don't know exactly what year, but so many people come to this festival and they learn so much. They did have voter registration booths at both events actually, and I thought that was really, really interesting. Both events blended activism and culture, which showed how festivals can raise awareness while celebrating joy and survival. So, not only is it something fun you can attend, you're also subconsciously learning about all these different cultures and what they endure and kind of the issues surrounding them, but also having a sense of joy and how they've made it this far, withstanding and keeping their cultural pride. Why these events matter: visibility, of course. Cultural events help push back against erasure and offer public representation of ethnic communities. I can definitely attest there were so many different people at these festivals, and I think visibility is so important. The way they marketed both of these festivals and celebrations, the outcome of people, I think it really truly made a difference. Joy at both festivals, joy was not separate from struggle. It was a form of resistance. The people there performing or attending the festival as vendors, performers, demonstrators, they had joy for their culture and for their ethnicity. And it was a form of resistance for sure. Some takeaways: both celebrations revealed how marginalized communities reclaim their space, build a sense of pride, and educate others while continuing to resist systemic forces that try to silence them and their identities. Thematic analysis. So, from For some historical context, Nikkei Matsuri connects to the Japanese-American internment experience and the long-term impact of systemic racism. As for the Cinco de Mayo festival, it reflects cultural memory tied to both Mexican history and Latinx identity in the United States. Cultural heritage, through food, dance, and storytelling, both events acted as forms of cultural resistance against assimilation and cultural erasure. I keep saying that, but it's truly something that I've noticed through both of these events. And intersectionality in action. Observing these festivals revealed how race, ethnicity, age, and immigration status intersect to shape diverse community experiences. This is also one of the pictures from the karate events that I mentioned earlier. Social implications. So these cultural events served as tools for equity. These celebrations served as counter-narratives, which challenged the dominant stereotypes that still prevail and promoted racial equity through community empowerment. And I want to highlight that preserving culture equals preserving power. Acts of cultural preservation help keep shared history and traditions alive and push back against being overlooked in a diverse society that often sidelines ethnic voices and ethnic identities. My reflection on both of these events, I have a much deeper appreciation for how cultural identity is preserved and celebrated in public spaces, especially by communities that have faced discrimination and invisibility for years, if not decades. These festivals are a way for people to honor their histories and educate others and create space for a pride for who they are. By going to these events, it helped me connect and have a way better understanding of core themes like systemic racism, resilience, and intersectionality to real-life examples. So seeing them display their pride showed me how important these terms are to teach others who are ignorant to them. My conclusion from going to both of these celebrations, my key takeaways: cultural festivals like Nikkei Matsuri and the Cinco de Mayo Festival in San Jose go beyond just entertainment. They serve as platforms for cultural preservation, community resilience, and activism. These events help marginalized communities reclaim their space, pass down traditions through multiple generations and continuing, and educate others about their histories and ongoing struggles. My final thoughts after doing this project: cultural celebrations are living reminders that history isn't just something we read about, it's something that we are currently living. Communities actively carry, protect, and share history. In a society where certain identities are often erased, misunderstood, or marginalized, these events make culture visible, and it is so evident. My call to action to all of you is support local cultural events, and please learn about the histories that aren't taught in school. Luckily enough, in an ethnics class we are, but not everyone has the ability or the access to do so. So educating others as well. Please show up and listen and be a part of preserving stories that matter, and get involved in your community. My question I have is, how do public cultural celebrations like these shape the way we understand history, identity, or community in a multicultural society? Thank you so much.